You know, one of the more common calls I get on both the Los Angeles show and the national radio show is about anxiety and dogs and cats that are anxious. So how do you deal with the anxious dog or the anxious cat? What can you do to make them feel a lot more comfortable? Well, a lot of people, when their dog or cat is showing anxiety, primarily with dogs, people get anxious themselves and they start trying to correct the dog. Stop it, shut up, be quiet. Nothing can be further from what you should be doing. So let's talk about the anxiety in dogs and cats and some of the things you can do to calm down some of that anxiety. First of all, the most important thing you can do is find out what's causing the anxiety, the source of the anxiety. Is it the neighbors yelling next door? Is it the smoke alarm going off in your house? Is it the sirens going by? Is it the dog barking next door? Uh, there's so many different things that can cause anxiety in your dog. And remember, a dog's sense of smell and their sense of hearing is so much better than ours that things that we may just bypass and say it's no big deal can really, really affect your pet. So it's important to find the source of the anxiety. Maybe it's just being left alone. Maybe it's separation anxiety. Maybe it's abandonment anxiety. First thing you need to do is figure out why the anxiety, what anxiety we're dealing with. Second thing to do is reduce the stress. How do you reduce the stress? There's several different ways you can do that. Number one, and I wrote this just the other day, the first thing you need to do is remove the anxious dog or cat from the source of the anxiety. So if we know that the dog is being anxious because there's a siren going by, move the dog to the back of the house. Take him somewhere else where it's a little bit calmer and try to calm him down a little bit at that point. Later on in a future segment, I'll talk about how to desensitize the dog specifically to what they may be anxious over. But it's important to really understand what the anxiety is all about, what's causing it, and remove the dog from it. Distract the dog a little bit. That's important as well. So if the dog is anxious because he hears something that bothers him, try to calm him down with something he's comfortable with, a new toy or toy that he knows well, cuddle him, whatever you need to do. Also, it's important to remember that when you have an anxious dog or an anxious cat, I wrote this all down. I usually don't do this, but I wanted to make sure I covered it all with you, is to cuddle your dog. You know, the first thing a mother does when a puppy is born is to lick them. And then the puppies kind of cuddle each other. It's kind of a way of bonding. It's a way of alleviating stress and feeling more confident about themselves. So when your dog is feeling anxious or stressed out, cuddling your dog is a good thing to do. Now, of course, if the dog is dealing with aggressive behavior, that's a different ballgame. And some dogs do get aggressive when they're anxious, and we'll talk about that in the future as well. But right now, if your dog is showing anxiety, and I know it sounds a little simplistic, but cuddling your dog can make all the difference in the world. Also, exercise. I would have to say that a vast majority of anxious dogs and anxious cats for that matter are due to lack of exercise and mental stimulation. The cat that's in the house all day long, all of a sudden something outside sparks his attention. He may become anxious. The dog that doesn't get enough exercise, they become anxious as well. I'm a stickler on exercise. You know, in the 70s, I wrote a book called Pet Aerobics, an exercise book for dogs and cats. They covered it in People magazine with 4 pages. In fact, they called me the Jane Fonda of the pet world. Not something I'm thrilled about. However, that being said, exercise can alleviate so many anxieties, not only in our dogs and cats, but in ourselves as well. We know how we feel after we exercise. We're tired, but we feel good that we did it. So exercise is a critical part of alleviating stress and anxiety in your dog. And you know, here's probably the most important thing you can do. Look in the mirror. That's right, look in the mirror. You know, your personality, your behavior, can trigger so many different things for your dog or your cat that it actually could be that your behavior that's causing your dog or your cat to become really, really anxious. So check your behavior. Are you yelling? Are you screaming? Are you feeling anxious yourself? All of these things can make a big difference in determining. Also, and I talked about this, in fact, there's a post up on YouTube right alongside this about certain types of anxiety and aggressive behavior that can be caused by medical issues. So, of course, if you notice your dog or cat is really being a lot more anxious than normal, first thing you do is look around your house, think of change. Is there a contractor there? Are you getting ready to move? Is someone move in? Did someone move out? The kid go off to college? All of those things are stress starters for dogs and cats. But it's really, really important that if you notice this coming on all of a sudden, and you've looked at it really from a good human point of view, maybe it's time to take a trip to the vet. Maybe there's something physiologically that's causing your dog or cat to be anxious. Listen. You listen to the Pet Show, you watch me on YouTube, you know we all love our pets. They're part of our family, we adore them. There's nothing in the world that we wouldn't do for them. But there's more to doing stuff for your dog and cats than just physically taking care of them. You have to really kind of get inside their head sometimes and say, what's causing them to be anxious? What's causing them to be sad? What's causing this problem? What's causing that? If you take the time to get down on all fours. And that's what I do, get down on all fours and look at your dog from their perspective or your cat from their perspective. Very often you can figure out what's stressing them out or what's making them anxious. In severe cases, there are medications your vet can use, but the ideal situation, if you have a really horrible anxiety situation with your dog, perhaps you want to work with your vet and a behaviorist, a trainer at the same time, so you can resolve it both psychologically and physiologically and get your dog or cat back to the place where they should be, which is happy, running around the house with a big smile on their face. I'm Warren Eckstein. Don't miss the Pet Show.